Good afternoon. It's another beautiful Thursday here in Accra in the studios of Metro TV and on DSTV channel 277. We are back to you to continue our conversation on Leadership 360, where we learn, unlearn, and relearn to accelerate the sustainable development and betterment of our societies. It's been such a wonderful journey so far. Today, for the past 17 weeks, it's been an amazing journey with you and personally, and from you, the listeners out there and the cherished viewers. Your feedback has demonstrated to us that you have learned a lot, likewise ourselves. Today, on episode 17, we're going to continue our conversation, but today marks the end of season 1 of the Leadership 360. We have a special guest to make us have the end of season 1 on a very traditional note. I am your regular host, Dr. Victor Abbey. Let's take a quick break and we shall continue our conversation when we come back.
I promise on my honor to be a better leader every day, faithful and loyal to my country, organization, and fellow team members, countrymen and women. I pledge myself to remain true to the core values of integrity and self-discipline through my daily choices and actions. My mind is alert, focused at all times. I shall show respect to everyone always and every time. I remain a better leader and team player always. So I pledge.
Welcome back, cherished viewers and audience. We are live on Metro TV, live on Facebook at Metro TV Ghana, live on DSTV channel 277 and V.U.C.A online radio. This is your show, this is your program, this is the Leadership 360. We have come so far. Today is the birthday of a very great icon on the African continent. That's Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. It is our fervent prayer on this program that the legacies of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah will stay on and ginger all of us to look up to greater things for the continent. We wish all of us a very, very fruitful community, success in our leadership endeavors, and may success be our portion at all times. This afternoon, as announced, we're going to have a discussion relating to traditional leadership environment. And we will look at it from a female perspective. And to help us do this very nicely is a traditional ruler or leader, so to speak. We cannot do justice to this topic without letting in a practitioner or a participator in the traditional leadership setting. So we have a special guest, as you might have seen on the flyer. But let me quickly introduce our guest for today. Our guest, having won global recognition for her work, teachings, strategic leadership, business acumen, and community engagement, has evolved into focusing on steering the next generation of female traditional and conventional leaders, building their capacity and introducing the concept of strategic, dynamic, diplomatic leadership. Indeed, our guest holds a degree in law, politics, and international studies, diploma in real estate management, postgraduate degrees in real estate and project management, certificates of qualification in global diplomacy, citizenship, and rule of law, internal displacement and conflict resolution, inequality and democracy and human rights in open societies. Our guest is also the CEO of Fortune Global Business and founder of Global Conference and Empower Dynamic Women, GLOSEF, and the 10 Talents Network. She sits on the panel of United Kingdom's Africa Diaspora Malaria Initiative, that's ADMI, and is the first female president of the National Council of Ghanaian Unions. Ladies and gentlemen, and our cherished viewers, audience out there, I have the singular pleasure on your behalf to welcome MANYE NAA TSOTSOO SOYOO the first. MANYE.
Thanks for having me, Dr. Abbey. It's such a pleasure to be here finally, and to be on the hot seat. I love the environment, and I want to say a happy birthday to Osajifo, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. And to yourself, thank you for having me.
You're welcome, and we are honored to have you as well. Now, just to set the ball rolling, as I always do, leadership, we know, is the foundation of everything. Yes. Whether we are going to be successful individually or collectively boils down to leadership. What will be your initial comments relating to leadership in general?
Leadership is about the ability to motivate, to empower, and to enhance the capability of the people you're called to lead. It's also the ability to teach. You won't always get it right, but there is a teachable moment in everything that you do. So that, for me, is leadership. Leadership is resilience. Leadership is the ability to almost be a chameleon, to change as time changes, to stand the pace of change. And so for me, I take leadership as a passion, especially female empowerment.
Okay. So does one need to have a title to be called a leader?
Absolutely not. Titles are just what they are, titles. A title does not necessarily make you a good leader. A good leader is one who is able to influence, even if quietly. Someone who, no matter where they are, is able to be the identified individual that people go to and say, look, if we need to get something done, let's see this individual. So on my way, I was observing a group of street hawkers having a street conference. And I was asking the driver, what on earth are they doing? So they're discussing, we stopped at the traffic, and they're discussing something to do with marriage. And the main person who was giving his views with people surrounding them, I thought this is a street parliament, and there is an obvious leader in there. And for me, leadership starts everywhere.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
So one does not need to be bestowed with a title to play a leadership role?
No, not at all.
Okay.
There are lots of title holders who are not leaders.
Who are not leaders. Yes. So definitely from your submission, leadership has got more to do with actions rather
Indeed.
than title
Indeed.
or personality.
Indeed. It's also about mindset.
Mindset.
Your worldview. How you communicate to other people and interact with other people. So leadership is a broad spectrum, but it has to really be about the identifying skills that you possess that makes people gravitate towards you rather than the next person.
What are some of these qualities?
So the quality, as I said, communication is one.
Okay.
The other one is the ability to be able to deal with people at their level, wherever they are. Okay. To be able to evaluate situations with a healthy dose of common sense most of the time. Resilience, you have to be a resilient person. You also have to be someone who perseveres. And in Ga, we say, Mukoni Echichi, you have to be a strong personality internally as well as externally. And be pretty much unshakable. Even if you are shaking, it cannot show.
So in effect, you must have a very high emotional intelligence.
You have to. Your emotional intelligence quotient must be high. But also, I mean, it doesn't mean you're not human. It means when you do your tantrums, it has to be private. You know, I have people I throw tantrums at all the time. And then you come out and you do your job.
Okay. So, well said. Leadership is not about position. It's about ability to be resilient and to motivate, inspire people, and to control. Self-control is one, and must have what it takes to, you know, sail through all the storms that may come. Because from your submission, storms will come regardless.
They do come. They do come every single day. Yes.
Right. So now let's veer straight up into our traditional setting. You have been, if I may first of all find out, how long have you been a traditional?
13 years.
13 good years.
13 years, August just gone.
Hey.
Incidentally, I was installed, and then the next day was my birthday. So it was, you know, 13 years of, you know, learning and growth.
Okay.
Yes. It's been both a joy and a big learning curve.
So that, again, confirm one thing, that leaders must avail themselves to learn new things every day.
Indeed. They
So
must.
it's not all about teaching, but they must equally learn.
Oh, God. Even
others.
when you're teaching, you must be learning. You cannot teach without learning. So there's always someone who's cleverer, who has a different perspective to yours. You must have the ability to look at the perspective from the other person's viewpoint and take it on board, whether you like it or not. You may disagree, but then the next person may completely disagree with your viewpoints. So we learn.
Okay, so as a female traditional leader, what are some of the nuances or issues surrounding traditional leadership, you know, in Africa or in Ghana, so to speak?
So traditionally for women, we live in a patriarchy. And so the role of the female traditional leader is really to help primarily, you know, to help with preserving the customs and traditions. That's the primary role. But also in terms of women and young girls, majority of the work is geared towards women and young girls. But also more importantly, the ability to be able to be the backbone of the male traditional ruler, to be able to offer advice and to act as a support structure. The male traditional rulers often are at the forefront, and often what people see in the public, they have their challenges just like everyone else. So you have to be the buffer that is in the background and or standing by their side and encouraging them, advising them, where they are veering to a direction that you don't think is appropriate or conducive to whatever it is you want to achieve. The ability to be able to diplomatically point out to them that we must look at something different. It's a broad spectrum.
Right.
But you're the mother of the community. In our culture, you're essentially the mother of the community. So you play a motherly role as well.
So that means multifaceted roles
Indeed.
played by the female traditional
Indeed.
ruler, including the advisory role to the male leader
Absolutely.
or chief.
Absolutely.
So the motherly role continues even as a queen mother.
Yes.
You continue to play that traditional motherly role.
I often joke and say we're the ones that breastfeed the kings. The queens breastfeed the kings all the time. And by saying that, it means that we provide the nurturing.
Okay.
You know, the male, the testosterone can do
a lot of things.
So you need the female balance.
Okay. All right. So when it comes to modernity or modern times, where technology, either social vices are on the rise and all that, how do you see the female traditional leader contributing to the sanctity of society?
I think I'm a prime example of where technology works very well, because most people know I spend a lot of my time abroad living there. And so technology bridges the gap between the ability to be present physically and be present non-physically or virtually. In terms of bridging the gap of societal ills, as it were, I think for female traditional rulers and traditional rulers in general, it's an opportunity to be able to preach the message of our culture and our tradition, to project it to the world in a positive manner, to help people understand who we are as a people, but also to showcase that there is more to us as traditional rulers than what the perception is. And so for me, I use technology to teach at every opportunity. And I think that's where we go. And in terms of the young people engage with technology, so you also have to keep up with them, to be able to mount those platforms that they're on, to be able to come to their level of thinking, understand where young people are going, and also be able to teach them and bring them back home to the roots, as it were. There is a lot of influences that come with technology, but the fear is that young people will lose their sense of cultural and traditional identity, and we don't want that. So technology helps in facilitating that.
So technology can be turned into positive.
Indeed.
By leaders.
It can be. I mean, it has its negative sides, but we won't talk about those today.
So do you see our traditional culture, very traditional culture, impacting on leadership style in our space?
Yes, I think if you've gone through that traditional aspect, it's a grounding factor in the way you do leadership. Diplomacy is very important in our cultural communication. So in Ghana, they say, which means you must think before you speak, you know. So diplomacy plays a huge role. If you don't have that background in training, you would assume that whatever needs to be said at every moment has to be just blurted out. But you have to consider people's mind frame at any given time. Also, words can have the effect of, in the olden days where we used to go to war, you could cause a small war with the words you speak. And therefore, the culture teaches you to be very circumspect in how you communicate and interact with other people. Your gestures could be an insult or a praise. And so these are all the kind of nuances that tradition teaches you that you would not necessarily learn from conventional leadership training.
So it means that traditional leaders are actually taking through some critical training before they are skinned and installed and all that. Do I get that impression?
Indeed. So during the period of confinement, most traditional rulers are given advice on how to carry themselves, the things they can and cannot do in public, etc. But traditional training starts from when you're a child, within an African setting. The number of times parents have been heard to threaten a child with a slap or two for behaving in a certain way is the kind of upbringing that then translates into how we perform as traditional rulers or traditional leaders. And yes, when you walk out into the public domain, there has to be something that identifies you as not just an African, not just a Ghanaian, in my case, not just a Ga, but also as a traditional ruler.
Okay, so why then do we see, if they are taking through all these rudiments of leadership, effective leadership, so to speak, why then do we see some traditional leaders doing the opposite?
Human nature. In everything you do, human nature always comes in. Now, as you know, as a leadership expert, as you know, given the opportunity, humans will take the easy way out. And I think often certain factors contribute to the way certain people carry themselves or behave. one of the main factors is the survival instinct. I say in any culture that there is poverty as a starting point, some of these things will play out. Because where people are having to survive, they're having to put themselves in a position where they do not want to go to the point that they started with. Often, if you don't remember your training as a traditional ruler, you may end up doing things you shouldn't really be doing.
Okay. So, economic conditions impact on the behavior of some of the traditional rulers.
Of course, because...
So that brings to mind... Okay, please go on.
No, I was going to say because the community depends on traditional rulers. Okay. So if you go to any palace, just before I came, I was in a palace somewhere in Ngwa, and people were already queuing. And I know that every person that's coming there are people who are coming with proposals, business ideas, etc. But at least 80% of the people queuing are coming with a request or another. Now, without the benefit of the backup, an economic structure, how does the traditional ruler cope? So they're not seen as a failure in the eyes of their community. They're not seen as someone who's failed the people. So they resort to ways in which they will be able to support the community. Unfortunately, those ways are not always the best. Yeah.
Okay. That dovetails into another line of question that has to do with disputes. Sometimes the disputes are not between the traditional rulers and their subjects, but traditional rulers across boundaries.
Yes.
Why is it so that traditional rulers or leaders cannot, handle disputes between them amicably?
For generations.
From your experience and as a practitioner.
For generations, battles have been fought. It used to be with spears and arrows and for territory and for whatever reason, battles have been fought. We're just seeing a new face of this battle. And it boils down to what I said earlier. Yeah. I have to admit also, if I'm very honest with myself, I think a level of greed has set in. Also, external influences have come into the traditional leadership setup. And so those external influences, together with, again, human nature, because greed is down to human nature, isn't it? And then the desperation factor, all combusts into what we're seeing now. And you see traditional ruler, going against another traditional ruler for the same seats sometimes. It's unfortunate, and I hope and pray that we as a people will begin to see a visionary type of leadership in which all of these things are a thing of the past. I hope and pray that it's a learning experience for all of us to the point where we realize this is not really where we want to go.
Well said. But that also brings to mind the influence. You mentioned external influence. So it brings to mind political influence.
Absolutely.
So what will you say? Traditional leadership and political leadership influence.
I was hoping not to talk about politics, but I think we can't escape it. Yes, certainly political influences come in. Also religious influences, but let me dwell on political influences for a moment. We live in a society where politics tends to permeate everything. And if you're the seat of government, you hold the keys to many doors. And those doors are either shut or open, depending on what the perceived affiliation is. Okay. So unfortunately, it's like the mercenary culture in the West, isn't it? And that affects Africa.
Exactly.
So if you're sending political mercenaries into a traditional setting, sometimes the traditional rulers don't have much of a choice because they do not hold the keys to the kingdom, as it were, and to excuse the pun, or pun very much intended actually, they don't hold the keys to kingdom. They have to abide by the rules of the game as has been set out by the political structures that we have inherited. And again, I personally hope that we'll come to a point where we have the separation between tradition and politics, in the sense that traditional rulership is able to stand on its own without a massive influence from politics, but to be able to collaborate with politics. Because you have to collaborate with politics.
Okay. I think we've spoken more about the generic traditional leadership. So we're going to zero in on female traditional leadership. Now, there are myriad of issues in our communities today, some of which you have alluded to: economic issues, political issues, bad traditional leadership issues, and all that. So from the female perspective, in terms of traditional leadership, what are some of the things that you think or you believe that female traditional rulers should focus on as a matter of priority in order to change the dynamics or the situation or turn it around?
I believe the first and most pressing agenda should be the ability to empower other women, to make space for other women to be at the table, to be able to work hand in hand with our male counterparts to develop a system that recognizes the talents, the skills, and the abilities of females, and to bring them on board the management and the leadership structure. I know many female traditional rulers who are incredible at what they do, and they are natural leaders. But we also have to recognize that we need to play within the patriarchal system that we're in. I am an ardent supporter of culture and tradition. And being in that space where we have, as female traditional rulers, to be in some way subservient to the male leadership does not necessarily mean you cannot be a leader. Empower other women, bring your skills and talents to bear. I can promise that where those are recognized, people will pay attention. Do not be afraid to speak. Just speak with circumspection. You cannot go and say, simply because this has to happen, I'm just going to come and be arrogant about it. It comes with consequences, and it's the recognition that whatever we have to do as females, there are consequences, and we need to be able to play in a way that empowers others rather than puts obstacles in their way.
So you also mentioned earlier, before I posed the question, that you played a role of preservation of tradition.
Indeed.
Can you throw a little bit light on that by way of how female traditional rulers, in the bid to preserve custom, can also instill some moral values or moral values that will eventually, culminate in the empowerment of the female.
So if you look at Ga culture, for instance, you have the priestesses that perform many of the rites for traditional rulers during installation and then thereafter. We have our Abbey culture, and we have our depot culture. We have the twin festival culture, which are all, number one, should be major tourist attractions. But then also the performance of those rites usually fall at the feet of women. And these are female leaders in the tradition. Beyond that, I think in terms of culture, the female traditional, sitting here dressed in this manner is a projection of my culture and my tradition. So if I was abroad and someone were to ask me, why are you wearing these ornaments, I should be able to explain the significance of them. And so these are understanding the nuances of expectations, but also what each of the performance of your role represents. If I stand up to dance, any cultural dance, and I can promise you I can do most of them, if I stand up to dance, I would need to explain what the dances are about. what do our music represent? What do our proverbs represent? As a female traditional ruler, you should be conversant with these things. What about women in general? What are some of the things that, as a female traditional ruler, you should be communicating to young girls beyond you can be anything you want, except one thing? What are some of the things you should be telling them within our culture? What does Dipo mean for them? The idea that in Dipo culture, the objective is to prevent teenage pregnancy, for instance. Talking to them about domestic violence and how to handle the home, how to manage a home is leadership. Talking to them about how to escape things like, on a global scale, things like FGM, things like domestic violence, and so on and so forth. These are all information that should be at the fingertip of the female traditional ruler. And then managing finances is a major part of, managing finances. How do you make 10 cedis stretch, for a few days? How do you do that? How do you make a nice pot of soup and a condiment with limited finances? And how do you engage with other people? So I hold our market traders in awe. They're masters of managing finances. Most of them haven't been to a high level of education. These are some of the things we need to know as female traditional rulers.
So it means that at all times, female traditional rulers must have their eyes on the ball, and their feet must always be on the ground to understand the realities of the times, and to at the same time preserve the culture or the values of society.
Yes.
Do you see that happening across in the current scheme of things?
To a large extent, yes, but not always, and I have to be honest.
Right.
I forgot one thing. We also have to make the men look good. We have to make the men look good. So if you're presenting alongside the male counterparts, it's your courage, it's your presentation. But yet, no, to answer your question, unfortunately, not always.
Okay.
Again, human nature gets in the way.
Manye, it's been, so far, I'm enjoying the conversation, and if I don't take it, we'll go on and on and on. Let me give a breather, and when we are back, we'll continue. Let's take a breather, and we shall be right back. Welcome back, cherished viewers and audience. This is Leadership 360 on Metro TV, DSTV channel 277. We shall open the phone lines shortly for your inputs into this conversation. Meanwhile, it is very critical for us to note that today marks the end of season 1 of the Leadership 360 on TV. We are going on break for a month, and we will be back, and you can be sure that season 2 will be more than what you have witnessed. Meanwhile, we have an upcoming out-of-studio event in Kumasi, Prempeh Assembly Hall in Kumasi. Kumasi, watch out. We'll be there on 27th of October, and we have very astute leaders, speakers, entrepreneurs who will be speaking, all aimed at promoting selfless and timeless leadership skills for the betterment of our society at large. There is nothing we can do that will be more sustainable than equipping generations with the right leadership skills to shoulder the mantle of leadership in our society. The leaders you'll be seeing or hearing from, those are the beautiful speakers that you'll be hearing from in Kumasi. Participation is free, so there is no reason not to be there. Other speakers, other special guests will be there. So yours is to just register, just make a call, and you will be part of it. Now, Manye, so far I have enjoyed a lot, and I believe our viewers and audience are also equally enjoying. Let's push the conversation again into another domain where we're going to talk about development projects or developmental projects in our communities. The female traditional ruler, what are some of the things they can do to initiate such sustainable development projects in our communities? Because all we need is development. So what are some of these things that female traditional leaders can do?
First of all, female traditional rulers need to understand, one, what does development mean in practice? In theory and then in practice. Secondly, what are the needs of their local communities or the communities they're called to lead? What are the needs of girls especially and young men as well? And then I firmly believe that looking at that from a microscopic perspective, honing to the young girl, the female child.
Okay, Manye, the young girl.
Yes.
Let me just open the phone lines while you are contributing so that we can get some views from our cherished audience as well. So the line to call is on your screen. Is 0531-982298. 0531-982298. Just look on the screen, or if you are listening online, 0531-982298. If you are outside the shores of Ghana, just add +233 and you reach us right here in studio. Manya, please continue your delivery.
So you look at things like in terms of young girls, are there facilities in your local community that enables them to be able to have their private moments, to be able to keep their hygiene, especially during those observative times of the month? So what can you as a female traditional leader do to facilitate that? And then we look at things like how can we, beyond education, I believe that not everyone is academically inclined. So what can you do to empower people, young people in general, but especially the female child, to be able to have skills-based learning? What initiatives can you bring to bear? And this is at the community level. And then we're looking at education. How do we encourage young girls to take up STEM, for instance? Because traditionally, young women and women in general are expected to chart a certain path educationally. And I'm a staunch advocate of STEM education for girls. So how do you empower? What kind of initiatives can you bring to bear to empower young girls to be able to go into STEM education and take that up as a profession? So there are various things you can do. In terms of skills-based learning, I know of initiatives that are looking at things like soap making, dressmaking. I know of initiatives that are looking at women going into plumbing, etc. These are things I think we should be leading on. Also, career coaching, which you know I do, and I'm passionate about. How do we coach young girls into different career paths? But more importantly, whilst doing that, how can they learn financial management? So if somebody wants to work, I believe aim high, and then your capabilities will bring you to the level you need to go to. So if you set your sights and say, listen, I want to become an actuary and work towards being an accountant, who knows where you might end up? If you're brilliant enough, you may be the next leader of the World Bank. And nothing is impossible. So developing that kind of culture in young people and young girls.
We have our first caller on the line. James from Tertiary, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Welcome to Leadership 360.
Thank you.
Your point, please.
Yeah, I just want to talk to Manye. Manye Galawi again.
Okay.
Yeah. Manye.
Papa.
Aiko.
Yay.
Ofane.
Please, can you speak up a bit for us, please?
Yeah. No my job. Because you bulani be amejuba nanyo majo. Bulani be amejuba nanyo majo. Emona wa ake mi na bumene no bi. Mpa ofanyo mabo iwa ni ojaje ka Ye ni your leadership when no wame. Ni chumo kume ni nkebana boji. Obi we kume ya domoshi gadangbe manye obrayo few. Mi dongala wode. Onema chonima na o contact ni nkala wode. Atolo tiko nate. Yeah, say mi doni omwe.
Okay, thank you very much. For those of us who may not understand Ga, the caller was just commending Manye for taking time to explain the issues to the public. She has gone deep to explain everything, and he also indicated that he could not or he cannot move away from the TV because he kept receiving more insights and the fact that he will want Manye to mentor or coach an upcoming Queen Mother. So that is what the caller said. Thank you, Manye. So we were talking about the kind of things that traditional leaders, female traditional leaders should focus on. And you mentioned about some basic economic activities that should be put in place and other, critically required facilities for females in the communities. Now, when it comes to our society today, there are a lot of issues, but before I come back to that, Kudus, good afternoon from Newtown.
Yes, good afternoon, my brother. And
how are we?
We're doing good.
All right. Please, your point.
Yes. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yeah. We're good, God well. All right. Okay. Actually, first and foremost, I would like to recommend your program, which I see to be very important as far as tradition, as far as Africa and then tradition is concerned. I would like to recommend NAA TSOTSOO that I'm so proud with there. Not caliber of person here. And when it comes to African tradition, gone are the days when they may say in the traditional arena, it's lacking of intellectuals. God didn't know today. We have people like her. I know of great women, especially from the Ghana Dangbe. A prominent person to the extent of even American presidents who come to Ghana and recommend people like Patient Kwe and others, as well as this great woman that we have on our set. That's the recommendation I'm giving. Then my question comes in. I know she made mention of taking care as a queen mother. Some part of your duty is how to groom the young ladies coming up in order to succeed them one day, which is a very paramount to me. In as much as to me that I will, when it comes to, I don't want to center it with guns alone. Like our young people that are coming up, especially those coming from the chieftaincy homes and those tradition homes, need kind of education to know who they are and know their role in the society and see how they can be there for their tribe and build the tribe up in order for them to take what is due them to where they are.
All right. Thank you. Manye, I guess it's about how you contribute to further educating the young ladies coming up within the communities. So your comments, please.
It's about, again, I guess about coaching, setting up coaching sessions for, someone said earlier they'd like to invest the coaching of a young girl with me. I'm quite happy to coach them. And I think we need to expand. We need more NAA TSOTSOO Soyoos. And I think there's some, as I said earlier, there's some incredible female traditional leaders who should take up the coaching of young girls, and especially those coming up in the tradition. And those doing well need to take up the challenge and be able to groom them. We want to get to a position where we have female traditional rulership that's taken seriously, that has a voice that's amplified enough that will be heard, but also has ideas, are able to be stateswomen, are able to be to perform at the local level, but also on a global scale. And I think he's right. We need to take on the responsibility of grooming the next generation, and I'm ready for the challenge.
And I'm glad that it's happening right here on Leadership 360.
Indeed, indeed.
And not just for the sake of it, but it's making impact as well. This
Indeed.
is one of the most educative programs, leadership education program on TV today in Ghana. So for you to be here, we are excited, and we have heard you. It's an excitement for you to contribute your quota. So I was earlier making the point that now, looking at the economic space we find ourselves in, the young people are becoming, for want of a better word, despondent about the kind of situation they find themselves in. And everybody's, or almost all the young people's eyes are on the world out there.
Yes.
You are out there. What are some of the things you will say concerning life out there?
So the brain drain culture is something that's of grave concern to me. I see brilliant young people migrating and taking their talent and skills elsewhere, because as I said, we don't have the opportunities economically. But being out there, I also see, interestingly enough, a huge engagement with heritage and culture. Young people are beginning to now embrace, whereas back home I observed that young people are looking to Western culture as a validation of themselves. Out there, young people are beginning to embrace their culture. They're beginning to be more authentic, from young girls embracing their natural hairstyles and skin tones and everything else, to which means eradicating the bleaching culture, to people engaging with their Afrobeat music, to the point where it's gone global. Their cultural music, even seeing portraits of young girls dressed in traditional wear,
Right.
you know, and assuming traditional names. For me, that gives me a joy. So I think we have to strike the balance and bring the two mindsets together. The one that sees the West as paradise, and it isn't. And the one that wants to come back home, have them have a conversation and strike a balance. Bring the best of the West, add it to the best of our culture, and we'll be a fantastic people.
Great submission. Cherished viewers, at this point, permit me to wish some more people some birthday wishes. I take the opportunity to wish General Chumampufo a happy birthday, and Colonel Agbebo a happy birthday as well. May the Lord keep you safe and sound, and greater grace ahead of the days of your life. And I also have Na on the line. Good afternoon, Na. Good afternoon, Na.
My name is Anna, not Na.
Anna.
Yes.
All right, Anna, good afternoon. Sorry. You're welcome to Leadership 360.
Yes, I just wanted to congratulate. Yes.
That's my aunt.
Hello,
That's my aunt who brought me up.
You this second. Mi auntie Anna.
Yeah.
Me keje adogono yanungwa. Congratulations to you. I'm watching
Thank you.
and listening to the program. Kudos to your elbows. And also to Dr. Victor Abbey, your host. Thank you, and God bless all of you. Keep it up.
Thank you.
Thank you, Auntie Anna. That's great. Viewers, all too soon, the time is almost up. We have been doing this program for the past 17 weeks, and it's been an amazing opportunity for us to learn. Insightful submissions have been made by various guests who appeared on this show, from Captain Namuabein to Mark Obiapao, to Major Dr. Ajiman, to Dr. Genevieve Duncan, to Ama Amwa, to a whole lot of them, and it's been amazing. One thing we hold high on this program is an honor code that requires all of us to be of a certain behavior, exemplary, so that everybody sees the essence of leadership. So let's take a look at our honor code, and when we come back, we will do the final remarks.
I am a proud and firm African. I will take a stand. I will lead and be the change. Come and take my hand. For the safety, honor, and welfare of my country and company come first. Always and every time. The honor, welfare, and comfort of the people I lead come next. My own ease, comfort, and safety come last. Always and every time.
Welcome back. Are you an innovator? There is an innovation summit coming on in Kumasi as well on 29th of this month. If you are an innovator, regardless of whatever it is, this summit is expected to expose you to the world out there. There are investors looking for such opportunities to invest in your business. Be there. Just follow the instruction on the screen, the contact 0244-799909 and register and be part of it. I promise you, you will not regret it. Your innovative idea will be put out there for everybody to see. Manye, Ofane, your last words for us.
Okay, my last words to everyone in general, but specifically to women and young girls. Develop personal values. You must have personal values that shape how you carry yourself. Number 2, develop a sense of resilience. Persevere. Life is not meant to be easy, but if you do persevere, you will achieve your aims. Also, network. Please do. In addition to that, learning never ends. To the female traditional rulership set, I say I equal because often what we do is not seen. But also inspire others. Your seat is there. Take it, but don't grab it. Be circumspect when you go and take the seat. Above all, I want to say, whatever you do, I hope you're seen, I hope you're heard, and I hope you're celebrated. And thank you for having me. I forgot to say you look splendid, by the way.
Oh, thank you, thank you. You look so too. And develop personal values, be resilient, be patient, be persevere, and build good networks around yourself for the betterment of your own career and society at large. Thank you very much. And viewers, this marks the end of today's episode and season 1 of the Leadership 360. We shall be back in November, and we promise to give you more than you can think of. It's been nice having you around. I've been your regular host, Dr. Victor Abbey, and I hope to see you in Kumasi for the Fiscal Out of Studio event, the Lura Summit. The Lura Summit is happening live in Prempeh Assembly Hall in Kumasi. Manye will be there as well to speak to us, and all the other speakers you have seen on this show will be there in addition to others. Let's make it a point to be there. It's free, participation is free, and hope to see you there soon. Let's have a beautiful holiday and rest of week. Bye.